out of totally in.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Ottawa, and Mississaugas people. Confirmation of the agenda that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby accepts the agenda for the April 19th, 2022 council meeting as presented. Do I have a mover? Rick McBurney moves. Seconder, please. Paul Heffer seconds. All in favor? Carries. Thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Deputy Reeve Sight.
Yes, thank you, Reeve. I do want to declare conflict of interest on 5.2.1, which is the bills of accounts. The check number 507-908 is made out to my spouse, Tiffany Sight, for costs associated with the daycare operations. So I will not be voting on that motion to accept the bills and accounts.
Thank you very kindly. Public comments. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to speak at an item of business on the agenda. 2 minutes per person. Seeing no one with their hand up, we shall move on. Consent agenda that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby adopts consent items 5.1.1 and further that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives consent items 5.1.2 to 5.3.4 for information. Do I have a mover? Paul Heffer moves. Seconder. Kevin Faulkner seconds. Would anybody like to pull something from it? Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Yeah, it's 5.3.4. That was the donation made by Morris Turnberry. I was just wondering what is the right thing to do here? A letter of thanks or acknowledgement or what? I'd like something to be said.
Okay.
Because they didn't need to do it. There was a lot of pressure, talk. There were no agreements, and I thought it was pretty good of them to at least come with this figure.
I was going to pull that one from the items myself and thank them very kindly, and I'm thanking them very kindly for their generous offer. We appreciate everything that comes in because as they've learned through time, and we've all learned as a council through time, oh my goodness sakes, things cost a lot of money to run, and they have to be paid for. So I'm not sure, I'm going to
That's
Go ahead.
not a concern. We will send off a thank you letter.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you kindly. Oh, everybody in favor? Carries. Okay. Public meetings and hearings and delegations, we have none. Reports, the clerk's department, the election signed bylaw. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin Faulkner moving. Seconder would be Paul Heffer. Any questions or comments or concerns on that one? Not seeing any. I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Thank you. 7.1.2, electronic meeting request, May 2nd, 2022, regular council meeting. Do I have a mover? I have Rick McBurney moving. Seconder, please. Chris Palmer seconds. Questions, comments, or concerns? Go ahead, Mr. Palmer.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. We seem to have just one date solidified by this motion. What about the Almost Famous Players? I don't know if they've been in contact with you or not for, their future needs. So I just wanted to have it said that council is prepared to do this again if there's a conflict in scheduling.
Yep. Clerk will speak to that.
Yep.
Clerk
So there has been communications with Almost Famous Players. Nothing in regard to dates has been established yet. The 4 dates noted in the report are the 4 dates we are aware of for bookings, and this one's, it's really unique just because we have a council meeting sandwiched between 2 shows so closely together with April 30th, then the May 2nd council meeting, then the May 4th. So it's more than kind of a tear down and set up because we'd have to be doing it twice in such a short period of time. But with all of these, as we continue to work through a shared space here anytime, where it might warrant an electronic meeting, we would bring something forward for council's consideration.
Anyone else? Mr. Faulkner, and then Deputy Reeve Sight.
Thank you. Through you. In past years, we've had council meetings off-site at other community-owned buildings. Had one in Blyden, had one in Belgrave at one time. I just wonder why that wasn't an option, or why that couldn't be an option versus the electronic, just simply having it at another location.
I'll speak to that first, and then I'll maybe hand it over to Councillor Clark. I believe I was the one that put the motion through to have at least one meeting at each different location many years ago. Back then, it was a lot more simple. We didn't broadcast our meetings and that, so we could move around quite freely. Since then, I believe it has a lot to do with actually moving everything. Having said that, not sure, so I'm going to hand it over to staff to answer that question for you.
Through you, your worship, to answer Councillor Falconer's question, there's no reason why it couldn't. Council can establish the meeting wherever you see fit. That being said, at this point in time, you'll notice members of the public aren't always too eager to come to in-person meetings, and most of them like to take advantage, whether it's our live stream or if we're meeting virtually through WebEx, join the meeting that way. So my recommendation is based on what I feel at this point is the most accountable and transparent to the public, but ultimately there's no reason why a meeting couldn't be held at an off-site location. And that's completely in council's ability and prerogative to do so.
Is there rebuttal? It's not mandatory that we have live streaming of the.
I think in our bylaw it
I
is.
thought it was just recording.
It is not mandatory. I think the wording in our bylaw says shall make every effort to live stream. So you are under no obligation to live stream. We are one of the few municipalities in the area that actually does live stream. But we also know that our public, because we have live streamed for so long, there is an expectation from our public that we do live stream. But again, not a requirement in your procedure bylaw.
Okay.
So if I could just follow up a bit on that, then, Councillor Faulkner, would you, just so I have this understanding, properly understanding this, we could live stream from the Blythe Theatre or the Belgrave Arena? No, it has to be in this building?
This is the only location where you currently have the ability to live stream.
Okay. So it is for thought for the future, if you wanted to bring a notice of motion forward. It's a good conversation piece. Okay? I believe I do have movers for that. Anyone else have any conversation? Oh, yes, sorry, Deputy Sight.
Yeah, I just wanted to make no mention to council that I will be absent that meeting. I'm anticipating being on vacation that meeting with my family, so I will be missing that meeting. But just as a follow-up to Councillor Faulkner's comments, I mean, the comment about where the meeting is being held, that the meetings being held in Blythe, but were town hall related meetings. Those were not scheduled council meetings like we do during tonight. Those were specifically directed for a council or town hall to get public feedback as it relates to issues, concerns, grumblings, whatever the case may be. Not very many thank yous and successful in those meetings, but I mean, arguably, that was the intention of it, to make it more availability to the public at those particular times. And it was usually done just before a budget is usually when it was usually kind of scheduled. So, I mean, I think in all reality, I think as Councillor Faulkner has indicated, I think we as council have the ability to do that whenever we so choose. And again, I know before, when we didn't live stream, we still taped it and we put it on. Like, we still put it on video recorder and then put it up onto our website after the fact. So to indicate whether the public is not going to have access to those things is not accurate. They are going to have access to those meetings regardless of whether they're in this particular facility or they're somewhere else in the municipality. So, I respect Councillor Faulkner's question, and thank him for, bringing that up, because I think it's important now that even after COVID has been kind of, those regulations were lifted. We haven't done that as council because of the COVID restrictions. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean we can't go back to those public meetings, but as everybody in council is here tonight sees the enormous public that we have tonight, I don't see that being a big change if we were to move it from, here to somewhere else.
Thank you. Just for clarification, when I was on council before, it was for council meetings. There may have been a change after I left. That's neither here nor there, though. Anyone else? I believe I have mover and seconder, so I'm going to ask for the vote. All in favor? Carries. Thank you. Recreation Communication Services are next. 7.3.1, the tender results for the supply and delivery of a propane ice resurfacer for installation of ice leveling systems. Do I have a mover? I have Paul moving. Do I have a seconder? I have Rick McBurney seconding. Questions, comments, concerns, please? Not seeing any. I will call the motion. All in favor? Carries. 7.3.2, Huron County Recreation Program Services Agreement. And this again is, do I have a mover for this one? I have Anita Van Henderson moving. Seconder, please. I have Paul Heffer seconding. Questions, comments, concerns? Go ahead, Deputy Reeve Sight.
Yeah, I mean, this is, maybe I might be jumping a little bit of the gun here, but this is only dealing with day camp programs at this particular point, okay? Right? I am recalling that correctly as I'm looking at the Director of Recreation. So, yeah, I mean, I think my comment is more as to deal with this whole, how the federal government, the provincial government, and the municipalities are all going to come together to figure out how this $10 childcare, which I think I'm ahead of myself, so I'm just going to make sure I mention that I think at some point, council or whatever is going to need some kind of clarity as to how that's all going to wrap into that, but I don't think it applies to this particular indication. So thank you. I just want to just reiterate that for myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve. And I will follow up with a comment that at County Council, I did bring that up, that it's okay for the upper tier to say it's $10 a day, but who's paying at the end, because we know who's taking the burden of the blame and the hate and the phone calls and emails if it doesn't come through. So yes, even at county level, I brought that up too. Thank you very much, Deputy Reeve, for bringing that up. Going back to this, any questions for Director Luttenberger? Not seeing any. I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Public Works and Facilities, we have none tonight. Excuse me. Fire Department, there are none tonight. Office of the CAO, 7.6.1 is the Cross-Border Services Agreement. Can I get a mover and seconder to get this on the floor for conversation? I have Anita Van Henderson moving. Seconder, please. Deputy Reeve Sipe seconds. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to open it up to council. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on this one? I am not seeing any, so, okay, go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Got some concerns. I like the, as I mentioned previously, the meat of this agreement. There's a lot in there that I think we've all agreed to very nicely, and it makes a lot of sense. But I was phoned our CIO earlier, and he answered one of my questions, and I'll mention it, that this arbitrary figure of 10 cubic meters for the Willis property, it's not part of the 50, it's above and beyond. So, that was a question I had. The 10, I find that it could be on the low side, because, we're trying to get an agreement, right? So you're trying to think of what they're thinking, and it's got to come together. And, well, can't speak for them, but I find it small. It'd be nice to see it a little higher. Then it gives there's 30 acres there, so, we don't know how many actual businesses, highway commercial businesses could be there. And for just 10, that might be small. So, I just want to throw it out there as to what everyone else is feeling. 15, to me, it sounds better. It might be more palatable for the other folks. Again, just trying to get this thing through because we want an agreement.
Thank you very much for that comment. Go ahead, Kevin Faulkner.
Comment over that, or to re-comment, or to make an answer to the question. These are amounts that are essentially free, so I don't know how much free stuff you feel that we should be giving away without being compensated back for it. I don't see it the same way. We give them 500,000, but we're in a business. It's a business of give and take, and it costs money to get to. For those 10, it costs us money. 15 is going to cost us more money. How much free do you want to do?
May I answer?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
May I
Go
answer,
ahead,
please?
Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. I don't see it as free because it's part of an agreement, 2005 agreement. They could look at it as we're to give them the moon. And we're looking at it as we want to be somewhere that works. Like we received in this agreement for 10 or 15 or whatever the figure yours was, Counselor, we received 110 acres to be developed someday, and look at the taxable income we'll receive out of all that. So it's not like we're giving it away. It's a deal. We got this and we give this, you see what I mean? So that's why it's not a big bother to me to have a decent figure that would be more acceptable to MT. And it's not free, because we've received already.
Okay, thank you kindly. Councillor McBurney?
Yes, through you, Reed Bailey. In regards to this, if this is signed and stuff and delivered, should there not be some kind of time limit so that they don't sit on it?
Go ahead, Deputy Reeve Sight.
Yeah, so, I want to, there's a couple of things that I want to just make comment to. One, Councillor McBurney's question is valid. But in essence, in reality, the deadline is lame duck. Once lame duck hits, they can't sign it anyways, if they wanted to. Unless they've designated that authority to the administrator, the clerk, or the CAO, or somebody that we are not aware of. We don't run the municipality of Norris Turnberry, so I don't know. Our concern is that what we're doing here tonight is we've put our best foot forward. The intention of signing it in bylaw is we're signing it so that there is no holding back. So if they take their agreement in 2 weeks and they want to approve it, great. If they want to wait a month, whatever. As soon as they sign it and it acts bylaw, it's on dock. It doesn't have to come back to us for approval. So I think we are doing everything that we can to ensure, to validate and make sure this gets passed long before this term of council can end, and then therefore the next term of council can start fresh with a new idea, new arguments, no history, no back and forth. It's done, it's over with, and hopefully we can move on with a more positive outlook for both municipalities. So I understand where the position is that we should be giving them some deadline, but my mind is we've signed our part of the agreement. This gives them every opportunity to sign it before they can, And again, at the end of the day, this council has made it very clear, until there's an agreement, there's no connections. So, I mean, it's then therefore in their court completely. So, I mean, I completely respect the points that Councillor McBurney has mentioned. As it relates to Councillor Palmer's comments and Councillor Faulkner's questions, these are valid questions. Like, these have been back and forth discussions for 3 years. You know, we have not, this has been sitting for a little bit because we are waiting for a whole lot of things. The one thing that I will say is, I respect what Morris Turnberry has asked for. One of the concerns that we have had is, and some of it's where the conversation has been talked about as being arbitrary numbers, is because we've asked for these numbers. We've asked for them, how much do you want? How much would you be, give us a number so we kind of know. And there hasn't been a number provided for those specific property. So I mean, we're putting a number because we need to give them something, and we need to make sure it's allocated properly so that we don't overgive or overuse our own, to ensure that we abide by the annexation agreement. And I think that's the only purpose of this whole idea of making sure that we give something. And again, this agreement is meant to be give and a take. Yes, you get cubic meters. We get responsible capital planning, because now you are responsible for your portion of the capital in this system. So I think there is a lot of positives in this agreement. There is a lot of positives that we can take out of this. There's a lot of positives for Morris Turnberry to take out of this as well. I hope they see that. But in order to give, I agree, I would be more than willing to give them 15 or 20 if they asked for it, but they never asked for anything in that particular case. They've just wanted it not a part of this agreement. And I'm saying we think it somewhat has to be a part of it, because we need to understand capacity planning as well as the annexation agreement. So that's why we're putting it in there. So, I mean, I understand where we want to make sure we're being fair and equitable, and I agree. I understand full-heartedly with Councillor Palmer in making sure that this gets through. I think we've done everything in our power to ensure, not only through the conversations that we have had as the cross-border agreement, but also as the work that the CAO and the CAO from Morris Turnberry have worked hard in order to get through, you know, their thoughts and process into this agreement. I think right now, in my personal opinion, I think it's got to go to these councils and let them decide on an agreement as to whether they're going to accept it or not accept it. We can make that decision tonight to accept it and send it off, and then let the chips fall where they may. I think we don't worry about future until we understand where we're at. There's been lots of back and forth for the last 2.5 to 3 years. I think this just puts an end to the back and the forth and just says, I think we've put our best foot forward. Here's from the conversations, the concerns that you've had. We've addressed a lot of them. Here you go. What do you think? And that's where I think we're going to go for.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Heffer.
Thank you, Reeve. I'm just looking at page 5, and just in the top paragraph there, it says, Willis Farm clause to reflect North Huron agrees to reserve 10 cubic meters of water, sanitary services. Well, I'm just looking at that's for 30 acres. I'm just throwing this out here. And north of Wingham here, there's probably, I'd say 10, not 15 acres of the land up there, and they've taken approximately 8 meters of cubic meters of stuff to provide those things. Well, this is about 3 times that amount of land. And when it says in the thing that we're to provide capacity in exchange for the 110 acres. I feel that maybe we should look at that 10 cubic meters. I see where Mr. Deputy Reeve Sipes going with this, but I feel we're not giving it the right number there. And I know what 110 acres of land costs, so I just feel that I want this to go through, so I'd like to see a higher number there. That's my comment through you, to you, Reeve.
Thank you. Just before I go to Kevin Faulkner, can you tell me what the amount was on the original contract? How much the original, when this contract was made 20 years ago or 15 years ago? What was the numbers put on that land?
I thought it was capacity. We have to supply the capacity.
Yeah, but it's got to be a number. We're arguing over a number. And for how many years? Forgive me, 20 years it's been around with no number on it. So we should really be saying, if we want to stick to what our forefathers said, there's no number on it, that'll be discussed when it's developed. Unless you can tell me different, I don't think there's a number on it. So just going by traditionally where it was. Go ahead, Counselor Faulkner.
Thank you, through you, Reeve. When asked the capacity of a manufacturing factory, they said they only wanted 1 cubic foot. That area of land that takes up and the amount of processing that can go on in that building, if they only want 1, give them 1. So that's 10 factories. So I don't, for the same acreage, so I don't know what, like,